My name is Ken Scruggs. I'm president and founder of Midwest Aerial Photography, and we're located out of Central Ohio. Some of you I've met before, so some of this might be a little bit of repeat on some things, but we got some new stuff in here. Which button I click to go ahead here?
Oh, the arrow was working.
I think you broke it, Jeff. Somebody have a hammer?
This is why we can't have those things. Should be checking blank something.
Yep, there we go. Maybe it's working now. I've got a lot of information in here. I'll kind of go through it pretty quick. I'll be here all day, so if anybody has any particular questions that we missed during this time, so I'll be available, so it'll be no problem on this. Well, we've got several projects that we actually have results on. We've got some new things we're doing. We don't know what kind of projects. We talked about a few things, especially in the low light area, but I think it's the technology is changing, so we're going to be limited by our imagination and applications on special projects in the future here. About us, we essentially started in '89, about 15 people operating in the U.S. and Canada. And we've been a DMC2 operator since 2010 and currently 3 systems. And we have used them to the max and filled up all the memory drives on all 3 camera systems in one day on some larger projects. And that ends up being about 6 terabytes of data for one day. Being in Ohio, does anybody know what this is? It's a couple guys. Based on the coin on that. We operate out of our own private airport on the west side of Columbus. And our airport is actually 1,000 feet longer than most of the county airports, so we get a lot of people just show up. But having our own airport gives us a lot of flexibility for testing, of our systems. Essentially close it at will, occupy the runways without having to worry about other people coming in and out. So it's worked well for us. Our digital cameras are in the big twin-engine fixed-wing aircraft. They weigh more than the helicopter we saw earlier, and certainly a lot bigger than the UAVs that Jeff is showing on that. And they all typically have the large hole in the bottom, for the camera systems. Again, so it's just a lot of twin-engine aircraft for our systems. To keep things going, we do have in-house maintenance. We always need to be first in line whenever something goes wrong with the aircraft. We fly the aircraft about 3,000 hours a year, so things break on a fairly regular basis, plus in addition to the regular maintenance. We also, one of the companies I own is an avionics company, so we're actually a dealer for a lot of this class cockpit stuff, and so it helps out with integration with flight management systems and keeping things for information for pilots and the crew. The DMC2 camera system is just the components are on the center board back here, but I think one of the more significant things is that the panchromatic sensor is the world's largest commercially available pixel array that we have, and what this camera has done is brought the digital cameras from multi-heads into a single head, so you don't have the stitch imagery to work with. And the whole design concept on that was to increase the geometric capabilities and accuracies. And I have some information on some projects a little bit later on. But typically with a lot of the digital cameras, it's a 5-camera head. So we have a larger panchromatic camera and slightly smaller red, green, blue, and infrared sensors. And these are all fired simultaneously with electronic shutters. And again, this is the CCD for the pan sensor is the largest commercially available. Packing all these things into a single lens cone, it's pretty tight, and there's several reasons for going with a system where you have smaller panchromatic or smaller multispectral cameras. A lot of it's just simply size and simply fit in the existing cameras or aircraft systems on that. This system is a 1:2 pan sharpening ratio, and it essentially means that we're taking one multispectral pixel and spreading it across 4 panchromatic pixels. The original DMC was 1:4.8, so it's 1:25 pixels, and it works pretty well in finely defined areas, building edges, roadway edges, but when you get into areas that's not so defined, field areas, agricultural, it looks a little bit more muddy. So there's a big difference with the much lower pan sharpening ratio. So with the 1:2, you essentially have, this shows the relationship between the two. It's not a whole lot, and it just simply goes to the full spectral, or the full size. One of the reasons for doing this is to going into an electronic image motion compensation. You cannot do that with a bare array, which is what we have in our little Nikon cameras or our other digital cameras. And that's probably the biggest reason for that. This system will do comfortably a 3 centimeter pixel GSD. So it's fairly low. So we're getting, Jeff, you said your stuff was 1.5 centimeter GSD?
Oh, that project was.
Yeah, that's pretty low on that. So we're approaching that, with the larger format systems. The cameras all have an IMU and a survey grade GPS receiver. So we're getting the airborne GPS and the IMU. We can do direct georeferencing fairly accurately for this, but in practice, it's simply getting the initial orientations for air triangulation process. Our testing is showing that the direct georeferencing actually does work pretty good, with the left image showing with full ground control, orthophoto, and draped over. This was a simple natural elevation data set DEM, and then on the right is strictly with the direct georeferencing with nothing on the ground. This project is one we did this last spring. It was a 5 centimeter GSD, and it was a corridor, and the purpose of this was to shoot a highway area, and they're going to put in sidewalks along the streets if they didn't have anything on this. What was significant about this was the air triangulation results on this. Again, with the accuracy that they're trying to get with this camera, this is kind of giving us an idea of what actually happened on this. So an RMS on this is actually in essentially thousandths of a foot on this, and this is a ground of 7 millimeters at ground scale. And when we get into what's this mean on the image scale, the RMS at image scale is on the pixel array. This project was under 1 micron on this. So this is a small project. There are 16 control points in the mapping, and there's only 29 photos on this. And this shows just the RMS values for each control point. So this is not an average. And again, they're measured in thousandths of a foot on that. The goal on this particular project was to achieve ground survey accuracies from the air. And I don't have the information here for the checkpoints, but everything that came back on this, that goal was achieved. So for any of the transportation projects, it's doing more for getting boots off the ground and people out of the traffic. So there's safety issues that people are more and more concerned with on this. And So this was the final product. So it's the mapping and the ortho photos for the design. And we can see the stuff in the back of the pickup truck on this one too. Taking the same system on a much larger project. This is from the North Carolina statewide project, and then this information is from the 2012 project. And this air triangulation block, this one used 1,600 photos, again with 29 control points. And we're getting an RMS also still measured in centimeters and millimeters on this. So we're still retaining the same thing. What we noticed is the RMS at the image is still hanging right around 1 micron. So that seems to be the control on that. So you can extrapolate what kind of the expected accuracies with being 1 micron and then figuring out your GSD on that image scale and figure out what we're really going to do. So we've seen that as being fairly consistent. One of the things with the automation, I think Microsoft is calling theirs multi-ray technology. Hexagon Group is calling it semi-global matching, which is essentially a pixel automatic correlation from the digital imagery. And what you get out of this is essentially an LAS file, an XYZ. So at a 10 centimeter, you're getting simply 100 points per square meter, so it's fairly dense. And it creates such a massive amount of data that it's usually thin. It could be a 10-to-1 reduction ratio. You don't really need all that as points to create your elevation data. The significance of this, in addition to the XYZ, you also have an RGB for each point, or CIR. So if you have a purpose for having, the additional data to work very well. The points is essentially a first return compared to LiDAR. So you're not getting multiple returns like you would do with the LiDAR going through any kind of a canopy or any kind of brush on this. This is a test site that was done, and so you can go through all of the same three-dimensional viewings, with these points. Now, if you notice that in the trees, I don't have my pointer on this, but in trees, you're just looking at the top of the canopy, and it's just simply nothing below that, but it is a true color imagery. There has been some one of my customers is testing this technology out and for using for airport obstruction surveys, since that's really what you want. You want the tops of everything on this. We had a project last fall where we had LiDAR data, so we thought this would be a good one to compare. So between the two, this is the point cloud created with the SGM, and this is LiDAR intensity. And we thought we would just kind of look at the comparisons. So this is an automated contours from the SGM, which you can see in the top area. It's a cluster up there because it's not reading the ground, it's reading the tops of the canopies. But in the open areas, which is down below, the contours seem to come out pretty good. Those are prior to the red of the index. This is the intermediate contours, and of course the LiDAR looks completely different because it's going through the canopy. You can see at the top there, and the intermediates. And then when we compared them, we laid them right up top of one another. So in the open areas, they virtually overlaid one another. So what we're seeing and the feedback we're getting from our customers is in the open areas, if you're going to do a landfill, any kind of volume controls, whether it be coal, gravel, it's one-on-one with the LiDAR. If you're trying to go through any kind of vegetation, there are some problems there. unless you want to read the vegetation, like on that airport survey. And we also did a lot of point comparisons on this. So we'll go through some of this stuff. It has all the detail from this. Our low light imaging. What we discovered, there's a lot of things in non-government projects where time is a big deal. So our instructions were, can you get there, get an image, and get back safely? And we didn't care about the clouds. So we're doing projects under overcast skies, which were not really what was done before. And with the digital camera systems, we're getting good clarity, good detail, and it's possible to map under completely overcast skies. This works out particularly well if time is a big factor, and if you just simply can't wait for perfect weather conditions. With the low light, we thought we can go even further. At sunset, the sky itself becomes your light source, and then you have artificial light coming into play a little bit, and we're able to image under these conditions also. We had a project, once we saw this, we have it's not a project, we have a calibration field that we use to test things. So we actually shot this calibration field on a project, and we're not a project, but to test this out. And what we found out as we get into this is the field here. And there's a lot of checkpoints on this tube. This was during a test. On the left is after sunset, and on the right is about 30 degrees. It's very similar to overcast conditions. You essentially have no shadows. So poles don't show up very well. So those are a problem area. The other things that we saw on very low light lighting is that the horizontals were very good. Verticals were a little fuzzy. So it depends on what kind of accuracies that you're trying to do on this, whether it worked out well or not. Again, this is after sunset, and you're starting to see a mix. The green dots that you see on here, these are actually the lights lighting up the billboards. And then we go into the other side with blow light, or well after sunset on this. So this can be used for light pollution mapping, figuring out who has electricity, who doesn't, after natural disasters. And there's also some discussions. You can see the different colors. You can tell what type of lights are being used. With the direct georeferencing with the nighttime stuff, it matches up pretty good. And I think this is your statewide stuff, Jeff, here. About the natural disasters, one of the big things we're seeing is the electricity is one of the first things that goes out, and a lot of effort going back in on these things. We happened to be close to a tornado last year, and so we thought we'd just do some testing on this area. So we did this, and then this is the night stuff done that same day, and it worked out just fine. And this is a small tornado, wasn't like the one that went through more Iowa here recently, or Oklahoma. But there's new capabilities with these systems, with the blendings, different layers on this. That's kind of it. Questions?
Can I notice on DNC2 there's a video, in the sensor has a video?
This video, right.
Is that deliverable? I mean, what do you do?
Can be. There's two things that it does. There's a frame grab, during the image acquisition that saves the imagery, so we can do an immediate in-flight check for coverage, clouds, cloud shadows, for trying to do perfect things. The main thing is that with change detection technology within the imagery on the video feed, that's what determines the speed for the image motion compensation.
It's a native, not a forward.
It's a nadir, right? It's a nadir imagery, correct.